That might help.
I was talking to myself for a while. Right, as I'm now no longer talking to myself. You suck. Yes?
Okay. Time for bacon. Unfortunately, I'm out of garlic. But I made the ciabatta, so it's my own fault, so... I love the fact that they actually removed the rind, so it makes my life a bit easier. You don't eat bacon! Yes, you don't eat this. Okay, fine. Prove me wrong. Last time you turned your nose up at it. You are a pest. See, you turned your nose up at it. See? You are a worry cat. Last time you turned your nose up at it. Now you're just munching it like no tomorrow. Can't you make up your mind? Oh no, this weekend I don't want to eat bacon, but last weekend, oh yes, bacon. Bacon, 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 bacon. Was that good? Was that acceptable to little Mistress Meow? Mr. Smuck satisfied? Has that quenched the desires and the meat hunger of the Princess of the Mew Mew? And that's how I have to open bottles. Because I got no bloody strength in this arm of mine. And I forgot to shake it, didn't I? Maybe we could do it a bit more. First things first. Under normal circumstances, if I had both my machines and this bloody arm was working properly, I would have actually been setting up my puff pastry. Instead, I've had to be lazy. And had to buy my sheets of puff pastry. Under normal circumstances, when you buy it, it's frozen, but you cannot work with it properly if it's frozen. So that's the puff pastry that's actually been sitting in the fridge, so it's nice and pliable. The yellow colour is due to the fact that I actually picked butter puff pastry, and it's a lot softer, so you've got to be more careful with it. The idea will be turning that into about a dozen sausage rolls of approximately that long. These sausage rolls will be consisting of mostly bacon. Just more to give a different sort of a flavour to what your normal sausage roll is, which is usually just pork mince. It's easier to do it with a machine, but you get a more interesting flavour if you actually do it by hand. The main ingredients will be your breadcrumbs as your bonding agent. Because I'm using bacon, I'm also adding eggs for bonding. Also, because it's bacon, it actually loses a lot of moisture when you cook it off as I am now, and when you actually work it through. Lovely. No, there's no ginger beer as the sauce. The sauce is actually going to be made of this. You actually combine honey, pepper, and barbecue sauce to actually make the sauce of it, and that's what you're going to mix through it with the breadcrumbs, eggs, as well as no, that's not the cheese. A nice, strong, sharp parmesan. That's what the main mixture of the mix is going to be. You are a sticky beak! Yes, you are. Out! It's a fridge. You're pissed! Yes, you are. The door's open. Why don't you go play? As you can tell, the camera's in a different position because I got the laptop just here. So, I don't know how good the stream's going to be because, as I said, it's a shitty computer for a change. She always wants to annoy me. Isn't that right, Puss? The worst part is, she turned her nose up the last time I gave her bacon. This time I gave her bacon and it was all over it. Is this what you want? Watch it! One of these days you're going to lose something. Huh? They're little jerky bits. This is kangaroo jerky. It's a good way to actually keep her teeth clean. Is this what you like? Let's see if I can get you to turn around this way. There you go, the look of bliss on its face. See how her body just entirely relaxes while she gets this to eat? No, you could actually eat it if you wanted to, if you were desperate enough. She doesn't get affected by catnip. Get out of that. The thing with catnip is it affects certain, not just species, but certain geographic regions. %90 of Australian cats are not actually affected by catnip. Whereas if you get an American or a United Kingdom's cat, Americans, it's a 70-30. You've got a 70% chance of getting a catnip cat. And the United Kingdom is pretty much a 90% or higher. Which is strange considering she's part Manx, which is actually from the island of Man in the United Kingdom. But there's still about 20% of cats in Australia that are affected by catnip. Hi. What I'm doing right now is just crisping up the bacon that I'm going to be mixing through with the bacon mince. because I want to get crispy shards of bacon mixed in with the bacon mince. It also gives me time to play with Princess Mew Mew. What, are you telling me you don't like this stuff? You get the idea. I've got a bench full of it. Like I said, Scorpion, just drop it. The easiest thing you can do is just... I can't have alcohol, it would kill me. It's not alcoholic. So, this much. Look, Grub. Hell, I've got 3 litres cold in the fridge. I'm actually surprised it's available. This is actually available in America. Apparently you can get it in Target in America. What was that for, Grub? That was sarsaparilla. Yeah, I'm not kidding. They sell it in Target in America, and it's readily available. I find it a little strange, but it's not... Oh god, what have you found, Puss? It's now gone outside to play with grasshoppers. It's made in Bundaberg. It's made in Queensland. That's where it's made. At the Bundaberg Brewery. Hence the name. Look on the label. Yeah, I've got both sarsaparilla and ginger beer. Mostly ginger beer because I prefer ginger beer to sarsaparilla. But damn, the sarsaparilla is good. It's all brewed. That's where the beauty of it is. So you've got that wonderful sharp sweet taste of using raw cane sugar, and you get that wonderful gingery snap that you can get when you're drinking it. It's made just there. The Bundaberg Brewery is massive. Bundaberg is the central place for most of the sugarcane production. No, it's got yeast. One thing you have to realize about yeast is not all of it actually makes alcohol. The yeast is just the consumption of sugar. Some of them have carbon dioxide, not carbohydrates. They eat carbohydrates and they produce carbon dioxide and other byproducts. But not all of them actually produce alcohol as a byproduct. Some of them just have water, and some of them just produce other hydrocarbons. The yeast that is actually particularly used in brewing of this does not produce alcohol. If it did, I couldn't drink it. It would, like I said, I just can't have alcohol because of the medication that I'm on. Yeah, you do realise that there are millions of species of yeast. Some can give you infections. Some of them actually grow on bodies. Others grow in the soil. Others are airborne. Then you've got others that actually need things like a vat to grow in. Each of the yeasts has a different effect for it. Oh, that's good. When it comes down to it, different yeasts are affected in different ways. That's why yeast infections have it. Just watch out for them becoming explosive. You got different ways of actually looking after it. One thing you can actually do is get bottles like this, take a drill, take out the plastic cap underneath, and then drill 4 holes in it. Then put the cap back on loosely. Under that centerpiece, you put a small rubber stamp. So then when you push it back in, when too much pressure builds up, it pushes the cap up, and then the holes vent the excess pressure. It allows it to actually still maintain its pressure to a point. Sorry, I need to turn the bacon. It allows it to keep its pressure to a point, but then it gives it an escape. Another way to actually do is keep it in one large vat and actually have a pressure control regulator. It's more a pressure controlled regulator than a valve, because valves open and close. That's only the 2 ways. A pressure control regulator only opens when it exceeds a certain value, and that's... What you do, let's see, what you do, basically, pretend it's 20 litres. You brew it up in this, and then you take your lid, and when you put it on, you've got a hole here for an actual shunt valve to actually turn it on and off and actually fill your bottles with. Then you drill a hole here, and then you actually figure out what pressure you want the ginger beer under. Put the release valve there, and then every so often you'll hear the thing howl, because it'll actually release the excess pressure. Then you actually let it sit for 3 to 6 months, and every so often turn it. So you're actually sitting it like this in a container, and you basically keep turning it like that. But the best way to put it is something like this, and have the release valve on a side like that. That way when you're turning it, it's over, and with it on the side, you've got a less chance of it actually spitting out the liquid. The other way to do it is have it like that, put it at the top, and just lean it to the side and side, so that way it's always under the air, it's always air. It's something that you've got to experiment with. The one I used was a big round one, had it at the top, and actually just rotated it about 10 to 15 degrees every time. So it would just, every so often you'd hear the thing pow. It was cool. If you want to experiment with brewing, one of your best options is actually to play with sourdoughs. It's a good introduction to the way yeast operates. Start learning how to make sourdough bread. That will give you the idea of how to handle and actually maintain a culture. Because you don't want to actually use the manufactured yeast, you want to actually find a culture that you can grow yourself. What you do is get some raw ginger, put that in the water. This will have to be thrown out because you get a container. You'd get your container and you'd fill it about a third of the way with water. From there, you fill it up to the halfway point with a mixture of diced ginger and sugar, and every so often come and mix that. Gradually, over about a month or two period, it'll actually turn into a bubbly broth. That broth is what you want. Keep scooping that off and keep adding sugar into that and keep working that, because that broth is your culture. That culture will actually give you a good one. And if you can keep it alive for a couple of years, the longer it lives, the stronger the flavour gets and the more reaction you actually get. Like the bakery just down the road, that has a culture that's about 130 years old. They make amazing continental bread. Yeah, these are all stuff that you learn when you actually operate with things like that. But the easiest thing to actually make is a sourdough culture. That's what I would suggest you actually learn on. And then once you've learned how to do sourdough properly and look after it, then you can actually grow that from a sourdough culture, and then you can actually start your own ginger beer culture. With the ginger beer culture, you can then start making alcoholic stuff. Because the base culture won't actually be alcoholic until you actually develop it for a year or two. The thing is, if you want to do something like this, you're going to have to start now, because by the time you actually want to do it, you'll have to wait for a year or two before it actually does anything. And this is something you only need to spend 10 minutes on every week or two. It's not something that it's not very time intensive at the start. The only thing that's time intensive is the duration that you actually have to grow your culture. because your cultures are going to start off very small, with barely any yeast in it, and then over time you're going to be able to actually start doing things with it. Like I suggest getting yourself a 40 litre bucket, and you're only going to make about that much culture. And it's not going to be usable until the bucket's half full, and that's going to take you about a year to fill it up properly. Because to feed it you need half water, half sugar, and you're only putting in probably about that much of a teaspoon of put your thumb in the teaspoon and it's pretty much just that much of both sugar and water, and that's all you're adding into it. And what you basically do is get that huge massive bucket, put a layer in at the bottom, and then once a week go in, a little bit of water, a little bit of sugar, half and half, pour it in, mix, and then put the lid back on and walk away. The only thing you want the lid for is actually to stop dust and stuff getting in. So you want something... I don't have any mesh anymore. What you do is you get a nylon mesh over the top of that to actually stop any bugs or anything getting in, but you still need air to get in and out. That way you can actually get yeast particles and yeast spores in. Oh, good. I'm just cooking bacon at the moment and talking about different cooking things, so you've got time. Got that. Bacon's cooking. But I still need to wait till the bacon's ready before I make the nachos. Bacon and sound good. Tackle. I said tackle, not crackle, for a reason. It's more of a poppy sound than a crackle. Here. That doesn't touch good. Bloody thing. Hey, Frozen. Well, it's more cracker, pop, pow at the moment because first stage is crispy bacon, but we're not there yet. Getting close. I am looking forward to the next season of Rick and Morty, though. Nope. It's not the best, it's quite interesting. Frozen, does that mean you're in transition or that you want to transition? Because saying that you're trans is not an identity, because you're still frozen. It's not going to change who you are. This is one thing that I don't like about the trans movement. If you want to be gender identified as a male, dress as a male. Walk around with sexual identification, with sexual dignifiers that makes you a male. No. If you wanted me to call you sweetie, sweetie butt cheeks, all you'd have to do is ask. But that's all it takes. It's like, hey, butthead, please don't call me that. Can you call me Roger? Okay, Roger. It's that simple. That is just a general interaction of a human. You don't go... None of the other bullshit is necessary. If you don't want someone to call you something, say, okay, I don't want to be called that. Can you call me this? Does not need a reason. Does not need an explanation. All it needs is basically, can you not call me that? Can you call me this? That's all it needs. A normal person will go, okay, it might be weird, but that's what you ask, and I'll respect your request. If he's a rude prick, he'll call you whatever it was. I guess someone hasn't listened to the song A Man Named Sue. When it comes down to it, Lily, but when it comes down to it, Lily, here's what people have lost their mind over. Gender has one purpose and one purpose alone: to give you an idea of what sex someone is. No one can ever change their sex, but you can always change your gender, because a gender just is the way it looks. If someone looks like a guy, you can refer to someone as a guy. If someone looks like a girl, you refer to them as a girl. That is just social interaction, and that is the only purpose the gender plays. It has no other purpose. This is why there's only two genders, because we only have two sexes. That's it. That is a scientific fact. No, not necessarily, Grub. It's called sexual characteristics, not physical characteristics. Do you know of the Indian study back in the 1970s? They were identifying that there was something wrong with some of the peafowl that they were coming across. Peahens were acting like peacocks, and peacocks were acting like peahens. They actually did a study, and some of the peacocks were actually peahens and had the sexual characteristics of a peacock. But their gender was male, but their sex was female. The idea that gender plays any characteristics within people. Oh, I can see it, Lily. Gender has absolutely no bearing on life. It is just the way that social interactions work, and when it comes down to it, you could either be an asshole or a good person. And if you're an asshole, just tell them to get fucked. That's just the way it is. What it comes down to, Lily, you've asked me to call you Lily. The reason does not matter. That's what you've asked me to call you. You're still the same person to me. You're still the same, and I'll still treat you the same way. Because gender term does not play an absolute bearing at all. So, I don't give a rat's ass for what it is. You either are a male or a female, but if you ask me to call you something out of respect, out of the way that people are, I want to be called Beansy, because that's who I am. So because of that, I'll call someone whatever they want to be called. Because I am a very, very on the far end of Asperger's, as I've shown you. My only aspect is logic. I don't deal with feelings, emotions, or anything else like that. It's something I can see, but it's not something that I can relate to or understand. My pure characteristics is logic. And logic for me, you're either a good or a bad person. And that is purely based on the way that you behave. that's the thing. Emotion should not come into it. I don't. Because when it comes down to it, sex does play a bearing purely because we are a sexually dimorphic species. You cannot change that. Our sex does take a physical bearing on things that on an internal and a biological function. A male will always be a male, a female will always be a female, purely on a biological level. You cannot change that. Gender is just something that we use to interact with each other, and you can either be a male or a female, but under the clothing or under whatever you're wearing, it doesn't matter, because of the fact being, you can present yourself as one or the other, and that is, gender is something that you choose. I choose to dress as a male. I choose to have the mannerisms of a male, because that's what I'm comfortable. It doesn't quite work that way, because hormones and hormone replacement therapy and things like that does not work in the same way, because under a genetic standpoint, regardless of what you do, the chromosomes in every cell of your body will either be XY or XX. Yeah, there'll be some XYX, XXYs, XXX, yada 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 yada. But that's lower than 0.01% of the population. And things like that, they're genetic abnormalities, but in most cases, the majority of things with Klinefelters, every single one of them are male, because they have a Y chromosome, which means they have basic sexual characteristics of a male when they are born. As they develop, their sexual characteristics will change, and then they just need to present themselves as what they are comfortable with. And again, that is their choice. Well, I'll let you explain, Lily. You would be more comfortable with that. It's two different sort of treatments that people can undergo to change the way their body is reacting. It's called sexual reassignment surgery. Just, if you want to say it, Lily, just say the whole term. You've got sexual reassignment surgery and hormone replacement therapy. Yeah. But again, like I said for Lily, gotta get in the habit. Sorry, I'm gonna call you Frozen for a couple of times until I get it back in my head. Both sexual reassignment or gender reassignment surgery, as it should be called, and hormone replacement therapy only affect the gender, because again, it just affects external physical characteristics that basically present you as one or the other. Your genitalia, well, basically, your dangly bits, the way you look, or anything else like that, has absolutely no bearing. You've asked me to call you Lily, so it's that simple. Like I said, it's what you've asked me to call you. It's that simple. It's the same thing I tell everyone. If you want me to call you something, just say, this is what I prefer to be called. Because again, it's just a name. I answer to, hey you, fuckface, ugly, dickhead. If it's directed at me, it would just be, yeah, whatever. It's just a name. Oi! Get out of it! Stay there. Shut up, Grub. She can smell the pork. It's basically mine. Mine. No, it's mine. What I got is someone who I know. They minced up 2 kilos of bacon for me, and that's what minced bacon looks like. The problem is a lot of the LGBTQLALMNOP movement get really pissed with me because my logic with them, because I use studies that I've read and an understanding of where a lot of this comes from, that a lot of things that I actually put across, 90% of the world agrees with me. And they go, okay, yes, what you're saying is reasonable, and it makes sense. There is the LGB movement, which is based on sexuality. There is the trans movement, which is a identity movement. But it also has to do with a mental disorder. I put that in the same thing that I have to suffer with my PTSD and my anxiety. It's something that actually people need help with. The idea of lumping things in with a sexuality that it has been persecuted, belittled, and even killed for centuries, and putting in the idea of a mental disorder and an identity disorder towards the same thing that is only a modern thing, I find that insulting, belittling, and offensive to even my friends as well as my kids. I have 8 kids to 7 different homosexual couples because they asked for my genetic material to actually have children. No, gender dysphoria is still actually identified by the International Medical Institution and the American Medical Institution as a mental disorder. The only place that it's actually recognized as not a mental disorder is the HMO in America and the their universal healthcare that they've got in the United Kingdom. They're the only 2 places that it's actually no longer identified as a mental disorder. Everywhere else in the world, it's still identified as a mental disorder because most people understand that these people need help and assistance. Some of them need to realize what put them into that position and help them get out of it. And others do actually need the gender reassignment. They actually do need to live as the opposing gender. Not necessarily. Affirming, no. Guide them through the problems would be the better way of putting it. The better treatment is should be 2-stage treatment. Your first one is identify where it's coming from, because sometimes you cannot point a finger on it, and those people need assistance in actually presenting their gender as the way that they are comfortable. That's what it should be helping with, helping them present, and it could just be using change of clothes, change of hair, and a change of mannerisms. Basically, assist them in actually being what they feel comfortable with. Some of them will need the surgery, some of them will need the hormone treatments. That is unavoidable. you're talking about a very small percentage of the population. The reason why I think they need help is because the suicide rate is just insanely high. The only two situations in which the suicide rate is higher is the Jews in concentration camps during World War II and returning soldiers that have survived combat injuries. People who identify as trans have the third highest suicide rate in history. And it's getting worse. The idea of basically, oh, just let them be what they want to be is not helping them. No. Depression is a different aspect. What it comes down to is more of the aspect of PTSD as well as an idea of mental disorders. That's where the problem is. The depression is a side effect of the way they're being treated, and the fact being that their mental disorders are actually not being treated. A lot of gender dysphoria comes from the inability to fit in as they were growing up. Yeah, Lily, the way this stems from is this. A lot of people who want to transition come from the aspect, well, a lot of people who truly want to transition come from the fact being that they have never been accepted or identified within a group around them. They've always felt ostracized. They've always felt left out, alone. They've always felt that they are the problem. Because of that, they actually have to find a way to basically identify with who they are. So these people need help, guidance, and assistance. Some of them will realize that, okay, I'm not trans, I'm just confused and a little bit strange. Other people are basically, they know that there's no other thing for them. But that's what I mean, Lily. What it comes down to is you need to find out where that stems from. But again, I'm not a qualified psychiatrist. I'm not. These are things I've actually talked with psychiatrists with, and every single one I talk to agree with me because of the idea that these are people that are lost and confused, that have no direction. They think their only option is that way out. And they think that there's something wrong with them because of the way they feel. But the underlying problem is never treated, and that's where the problem arises from. The second part is the trans-trenders, the ones who call themselves demi, non-human, they want to be called Z, Zim, Zer, or anything else like that. They're not trans, they just want the attention of the people because the current people who are going through this trauma are getting the attention that they need to actually assist them, and they want in on that. Not everyone is strong enough to actually basically talk about their trauma. I can talk about it because of the fact being that I have no emotional connection to it. It still affects me. It still gets me in the back of my mind. There is still a big problem with me. Like, I do have psychotic breaks. I do actually completely break down at times. And I feel sick, nauseous, dizzy. The world just feels absolutely shit and horrible. But these are things that I have to live with and for the rest of my life. Because of the fact being that I cannot emotionally connect with it, it allows me to basically pull away from it and basically look at it from the side and go, okay, this is what the problem is. This is where my issues arise from, and this is how I can deal with it. But there are some times in which it literally overwhelms me and just dumps me in the middle of it. And these are the occasions in which I literally have to pull back and just stop and reevaluate who I am. And it takes me months to get back into some sort of semblance of what you could call normality for someone like me. I suffer from very, very bad anxiety. That's why I need help whenever I go out, and I don't deal with people on a face-to-face level very well. Because of the fact being that I don't have a comprehension of normal social norms, people either react to me positively or negatively. Few people are indifferent, but in most cases, people just will react to me because of the fact being that I am a very, very strong personality. With being a strong personality, it makes it very difficult for me to actually relate to people. One, because I don't understand what they're feeling, and two, I am pure logic. I don't operate on the emotional. Oh good, I'll be here until I've actually finished this. And I'm probably going to cook some of it up, so this time you can actually see what it looks like. I'll be here, this will take me about an hour at least. But it's all good, Lily. But just remember, you're always welcome here, and just, if you want to be called something, just ask. It's that simple. And it's up to the person whether or not they're going to be an asshole or not. Okay, that was stupid. It was lucky and stupid at the same time. Lucky I didn't get a bloody egg. Okay, whole good eggs. The reason why you should always crack eggs into a separate bowl whenever you're making something is there's a chance you could get up with a bloody egg, and you don't want that mixing through with it. A little cheat when you're actually mixing eggs through something take some salt. Before you add salt or anything else, don't add the salt in when it actually asks for the ingredients. Like when you're adding eggs to a cake, it will add salt with the dry ingredients. Hold it back until you're making the eggs. Put the eggs in, or leave the eggs in a bowl, and dust the eggs with salt. What that does, it actually breaks down the connection between a lot of the eggs, makes it easier to mix through. It's the same thing when you're actually making omelets. When you're doing the yolks, put a little bit of salt with the yolks. Same thing with the whites. It'll actually make the whites a lot more shiny and hold its form a lot better. Little cheat of actually getting higher quality products when you're actually doing stuff like that. A lot of people don't realize that salt can be used to break down eggs like that. And when you're making something like this, you figure out which ingredients is the least important. Like in this case, the breadcrumbs are the least important. The breadcrumbs are just there to bind everything together to make it into the consistency that you need. I needed a certain amount of eggs, a certain amount of meat, and I needed a large amount of barbecue sauce and honey. This allows you to actually make a sloppy mess of whatever you're mixing, and then you hold the breadcrumbs back and then slowly add it in. It's why I don't measure things, because I know exactly what I need for consistency. Recipes are only a guide. That's what a lot of people do not realize. Like, they say 500 grams of flour, 3 eggs, 200 grams of sugar, a little bit of vanilla essence, yada yada yada. You get the idea. What I would change the recipe is I would add milk instead of one of the eggs, so that way I can hold the milk back and get the consistency of the crumbed mix into what I want. What I'm doing at the moment is I can still see little bits of egg white, and I'm currently mixing all that through to actually get it into even. It also is breaking up some of the larger chunks of bacon that's mixed through. I could do this with a machine. It would be faster, but you would actually overwork it. It's why I'm raking it through with my fingers like that. It's not very efficient when you're doing it on larger scales, though. So, if you start working with 20, 30, maybe 40 kilos of the stuff, that's when you start using an industrial mixer to actually get the thing into at least a rapid form of mixing. The problem with making large batches is it's quicker, but you're sacrificing consistency for size. Like, see, that's just a sloppy mess. That will never actually work for what I'm trying to do. But that's got everything except the breadcrumbs in it, and the pepper. What I'm going to do now is add the pepper and the bacon shards. Then I'm going to add the breadcrumbs in, till I get the consistency that I'm looking for. This is how you control how good your product ends up. hate losing weight. But at the same time, I need to lose it. Pepper. And a little bit more salt. With some thyme. Yes, puss? Be careful, you're going to get dusted with thyme if you stay down there. Two good ways to actually tell if something's ready is smell it. If it smells good, it's getting good. If it smells a bit off or anything else like that, your nose and your taste is the way that you should actually see something. Your eyes are going for what to present, and that just takes experience to actually get to that point. So, first of all, you don't need to go for the presentation immediately. The most important aspect of it, if you're not doing it professionally, is to get the flavour right. And cats off the bench. Yes, meow. Oi, shoot. No. You can stay there, but you cannot come onto the bench. No. For this part, you could use flour, semolina, anything that's really highly absorbent that doesn't really have much in the way of flavour. Most people prefer breadcrumbs because you can get a nice crispier flavour with breadcrumbs. With semolina, it gets a bit more chewy. Same with flour, because you've got to be careful with working that overly much. But breadcrumbs are used in the industrial scale because you can work them a lot harder, and they work better in machines. Which makes breadcrumbs a lot more available the other ones. What I'm going for, like I said, is consistency. I'm trying to use the breadcrumbs to soak up as much of the liquids as I can, till it gets to a point in which I can use it to create basically a sausage. Wait. Shoot. No. No. You can do this in a bowl. I like a nice open thing like this, because like you can see, I can flatten it out more, which gives me the nice little sloppy, and then I can dust it very lightly. Otherwise, you're adding in a larger quantity of breadcrumbs in at a time. And see how that looks there? That's kind of the consistency you want, what the surface is. But that would be ready for a meatloaf. I could put that in the oven and turn that into just basically a meatloaf slab. But that's not ready for what I need it for. See, if I take the top, see how it just slows out? And it's not quite close enough yet. You want it to flow out and keep its form. She's sulking because I'm not giving her any. I would move the camera, but then I'd have to fiddle with everything again to get it balanced again. And that took me 20 minutes. Normally the camera's over there, but... So it turns into a sloppy mess again, because nowhere near amount. I'm probably going to use all this breadcrumbs, and I'm going to have a lot left over. But I can do other things with this, like I can turn it into a meatloaf. I can mix in some carrots, some celery, and some onions, mix that through, put it into a baking tray and bake that off as a meatloaf. So it's a bacon meatloaf.
Get that bitch a cannon. Bitches love cannon.
Why, thank you for the follow. I do these once every 2 weeks. I always make up something strange and unusual. Next week I'm just going to be doing desserts. But this is getting closer and closer. The upside to doing it this way, you get the better product in the end. Downside, it takes the longest. So it depends on how much effort you want to put into it, depending on how good it looks at the end. It's also why, when you're paying for a good product, it's expensive because of the man hours that are put into it. See how it's starting to... my hands are getting cleaner as well? That's another way to actually see that you're getting closer. When your hand starts out like that, that's what your hand will be covered like. As your hands get more and more like that, it means it's actually sticking to itself now. And then you could rub... if I could use both hands properly, you would put breadcrumbs on your hand and just rub it off like that. It's one of the reasons why you need very, very clean hands, and why you see me washing my hands so often. It's also why I'm thirsty as all hell, but I haven't taken a drink. Up until when this point's finished, you don't touch anything else, if you can help it. You don't scratch yourself, you don't move anything, because you don't want cross-contamination, because anything pork related, and anything with eggs in it, is very, very touchy. Okay, that's starting to come together. That hurts. But I'm going to do it properly. See, it's getting there. Probably another dusting or two of breadcrumbs, and that will actually get it there. God damn, that hurt. I wonder why my... that's... oh yeah, I've got my overlay on, you idiot. That's why it's working. Surprised it hasn't crashed yet. But I'm not going to complain much. There we go. This is starting to actually come along nicely. What? You've got food. And I'll give you a sample of it when I'm done. You can't have that yet. The reason why you see me folding it like this is actually to try and keep it from going everywhere. If you start pushing it in and then pounding it everywhere, you're going to end up with breadcrumbs going everywhere. But if the first few times you actually fold it, see, literally now there's a big pocket of breadcrumbs right in the middle of it. And now you can take your time and slowly work it through. This stops anything from flying anywhere, and you can actually control the consistency a lot more. Because if I started doing this right away, you'd have breadcrumbs here and then it'd be just going everywhere. And see, if I now squeeze this through, perfect. See how it's keeping its form? That is the consistency that I was looking for. This will thicken up a little bit more with the breadcrumbs. But that is now ready. That's that stage done. And you are being a pain in my butt. Yes, you. Actually, come on. Come on. You wanted to give it a try? There you go. I do believe that has hit the seal of approval. And yes, I go through a lot of tea towels when I cook. I probably go through a dozen any time I do this, purely because of the fact that I'm forever washing my hands, wiping up and cleaning up. Stupid. Still hot. Oh. Check the oven is empty. Crank her up to 250. And that's 250 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit. I'm Australian, so I don't speak American. Need water. Much better. Now, the next stage. Here is where you can get some interesting tricks. If you don't have proper piping bags, you could use baking paper. If you don't have anything like silicone paper or baking paper, let's see. Normal run-of-the-mill shopping bag. Take a pair of scissors, and then you want about okay, I screwed that up. But at least I got another corner. recycling. Big enough. You want a hole about that size. That will give you the right amount of material you're going to be piping through it. Whew. If you're working with butter puff pastry like this, yeah, this is, I've been doing this every 2 weeks, Carla. Oh, good. Here's what you can actually lay up. You can have a sausage roll this big, or you can cut it in half and have 2 sausage rolls half that size. So this will be 6 sausage rolls. So how's the married life treating you? Okay, that's not good. So that one wasn't a very well made one. Sometimes you'll get tearing like that. If you look underneath here, it's not from that, it's just from the manufacturing itself. That was an end piece. So this is just for storage. That's over there because I'm going to need them soon. I won't need these yet. Get my makeshift piping bag. Let's see. Nowhere near enough. Much better. This is a poor man's piping bag, or a cheating piping bag if you wish. As you can see, it's holding its form nicely. You can quite easily make meatballs out of this, or a meatloaf. The reason why I'm using a bag to actually pipe it in is you can get a bit of consistency, and then you can shape it in the end with by hand. See? 2 nice sausages of even size. Then we take a mixture of mozzarella and cheddar. Roll it to about the halfway point. Okay, that's way too big. How's that? Still a bit too big. Here we go. Oh, well, that will just be a plain one. Because I played with it too much. There we go. That's not the right thing. The idea for these, you want the seam at the bottom, so you cook them off like that. And don't play with them as much as I am with these. And when you're storing them, make sure you don't put them right next together. These are just in storage until I actually do something with them. Get you out of the way, because I just need you for later. So that was the poor man's piping bag. I'm going to make a proper one this time. That's if you don't have piping bags. You're being a sook, you know that, don't you, puss? Now to do this properly. Next. And how are you doing? Okay. Then fold this in, fold this out. God damn it, screwed that up. Unfortunately, I'm not actually using much of an overlay at the moment because I'm using a crappy desktop. My good computer is actually broken at the moment, which is one of the reasons I'm not streaming properly at the moment. Okay. But thank you very much for the raid. Okay, this is a lot harder to it. No, I'm in Australia. I come from the land down under. G'day, mate. Oh, hell, I'll just do it by hand. I'm all the way up in Queensland. Okay, I'm just going to cheat this. Actually turn it into a proper sausage. Piping bag doesn't really work, so I kind of need both hands for it, unfortunately. Well, both arms, because I can't lift this bloody arm up properly. So what, did you just finish streaming? Well, the oven's heated up, so I might as well show you how to cook these while I'm... So that way, by the time I'm finished making the rest of these, you'll actually see some demonstrations of it. Throw you in the fridge while I'm waiting. No, I was just curious about what you streamed, not if you finished streaming. Okay. Go. I'll grab the first ones I made. But what did he stream? Oh, sorry, what did they stream? Because I don't know if it's him yet. These are going to be bacon sausage rolls. I'm putting some in the oven before I finish making the rest of them. So that way by the time I'm finished, they'll all be done. They're bacon, barbecue, and honey sausage rolls. That's actually to be as vents. You can literally just poke holes in it if you wanted to. But I just like being a bit more protective because it actually creates like diamond effects on top of it. Oh, that's side of it. Good. Where I put something else in there. Salt. Again, the reason why you put salt in with the eggs is to actually break them down, make them easy to mix. And I'm just going to put song requests on to make it a bit easier. I'm mostly a gamer when I actually have my computer working, but once every 2 weeks I actually do a cooking one. No, they're not hot dogs. I'll show you exactly what they are when I do the next ones. But let's see. You can actually make hot dogs out of this stuff. Okay, no. The problem is, in my condition, I can't actually cook as much as I would love to, because this is actually hurting a great deal. Please work. Song requests are on if anyone wants to have a play. every second Sunday I do a cooking stream, but through the rest of the week I actually usually do a stream through night times of Australia. But that's them ready to cook. Egg washed, dusted off, and I'll give an explanation of what I'm making after I throw these in. Take that down to 20. Okay. This is a mince that I just made. It's consisting of bacon mince with shards of bacon through it. I first baked off about half a kilo of bacon and to put chips of bacon through it. I added in barbecue sauce, honey, and 8 eggs. Mixed that through to make it all sloppy and disgusting. Then I gradually added breadcrumbs in until it turned into the consistency that you can actually shape into... See? Once it can actually hold its shape when you're handling it, then it's ready to use. That is a sausage mince. What I'm doing with this currently is... currently using some butterpuff pastry that I've got in the fridge and turning these into a cheese and bacon sausage roll. I've currently got half a dozen in the oven and I'm probably going to be cooking, and I'm literally going to go until I run out of puff pastry. Then I'm going to turn the rest of this into a meatloaf and have that in the fridge for later. Hope you're going to sleep well, and thanks for dropping by. What Moa was confusing it with is, what I was doing is running these through my hand instead of actually through a piping bag, creating sausages like this. Oh, god damn it, that smells amazing. If only you guys could smell it. And see, now that I'm actually handling them properly, they're turning out better. Because now I know about how much it needs, which is that much. Roll them into a sausage. Straight down the middle. Cheese. Then you go edge to the middle, middle to the edge, roll it face up, make sure you push it down, seam on the underside, let rest. Done. As you just saw before, how I cut them up, cut them in half, graze them, egg wash them, put them into an oven that was at 250, drop the temperature to 220 degrees, and they'll be ready in 20 minutes. Potatoes out because they don't need to be in the fridge. Put these down the bottom. Go. Now I'm a bit happier about that. Yes, boss? When working with butter puff pastry like this, you've got to be quick and you've got to use a fridge. The unfortunate thing is you've also got to be gentle. So it's completely contradictory whenever you're working with it. Because if you're usually fast, you're usually not gentle. If you're not gentle, you'll mash it together and it'll lose its layers and you don't get that wonderful crusty, flaky flavour. It just basically turns into a pie bottom. Turn the light on so I can keep an eye on them. Oops, I forgot the most important part. Don't try and cut them after you put them on there. You're just asking for trouble. As you can see, again with the sausage, try and keep it as even as possible. Cheese. And in the middle, try and wrap it as tight as you can, push it down with your thumb, then roll that up, and voila. Push the seam in, and then put that in storage like that. go. Once you've got it down pat, it actually becomes a lot easier. It's been many years since I've done something like this, so the first two were disastrous. But from here on in, they're turning out pretty good. The reason why they're resting, if you can see, the three down the bottom there are a bit yellow, because that means they've had time to rest. And the white ones are only just made. Never let them to touch, because the stuff sticks like a mofo and you'll never get it apart without ripping them. So at least put a finger difference between them when you're actually storing them. And fridges help. Never egg wash beforehand, always egg wash just as you put them in the oven. Because the egg wash will turn into basically a dry, crusty layer on the top of it, and then when you bake it, it'll just burn. There's 4 and 6. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to have about a 500 gram meatloaf done when it's finished. Probably a bit more. Remember, when you're actually buying it as well, the stuff under the plastic is the stickiest. So always put it face down when you're working with it. Your knife has to be pretty sharp. That's about what you would expect from a serving. You put about a meatball into each of them. So you picture in your head, how big is a meatball that you'd normally get when you do Swedish meatballs? So something about that size. That's why you actually get a consistency. It's much easier to do it with a piping bag, but I kind of need to lift this arm up, so I can't actually make a piping bag very well. See? As I said, the more you do it, the better practice you get. It's just been a while since I've done it, like I said, so I've just lost the feeling of doing it right. And if only you can smell what's in the oven right now. go, 2 more. Bring both of these out. That's 1 tray full. Push that down. And second layer. Yes, I'm cheating. For 40 bucks, that's going to give me nearly 20 sausage rolls, which would be more than enough to feed 6 or 7 people. So for 50 bucks, you could give a good meal to 6 or 7 people, or a week worth of meals. So that's less than $5. So you're spending about, no, it's for $6 or $7. You can make yourself a meal for a week. Keep them in the fridge. It's just a matter of putting the time and effort into actually doing this is very taxing. It's fine when you're physically fit, but when you're sore like I am, it's just a pain in the ass. I just miss doing it. It's funny, it's not even 15 degrees here, and I'm sweating like a mofo because of the sheer amount of agony that I'm in, because the bloody metal is just not cooperating with me. But I'm not going to stop because, well, I'm going to stop the stream when these are ready out of the oven, so that way you can actually see what some end results look like. Oh, goddamn, they smell amazing. You open the oven right now and you get that butter and garlic and herb and bacon smell. It smells like victory. What's the matter, Puss? Did the birds not want to play? Or did they play too rough? Yeah? You can have some when I'm finished making these, okay? Yes, I know, I'm horrible and cruel and evil. I'm not giving you what you deserve. That was Princess Mew Mew having a complaint. Or Comrade Princess Mew Mew Anastasia Romanov, Edwina Esquire of the Perfect of Mew Mew the First. Sorry, I'm just really getting sore. I'll wait till they're cooked, then I'm going to show those off so you can actually see what they're like. Goddamn, that hurts. Once they're cooked off in about 10 minutes, I'll be ending the stream, so that way you can actually see what something I've cooked looks like for a change. Because normally I just finish it and then call it quits and then bake it off later. This is why I don't do much streaming of cooking. It takes so long for me to do it. It's taken me 3 hours to something that should actually just take 40 minutes. Purely because I'm just so sore. But shit happens. What do you expect? I could sit here and cry about it if I really wanted to, but it's not going to accomplish anything. It's sort of wah, wah, wah. Next week I'm just considering doing desserts with ciabattas as a main course, so I'll be doing a string of mostly desserts. And I know, Edwina, you shouldn't. I'm alright, I'll be fine, I just need to take a break. I will be fine, you don't have to worry about me, Puss. My cat always worries about me when I'm sore. Things really too intelligent for its own good. It knows when I'm sore. actually knows when you're not doing well, or is it just certain ones that seem to just go, oh, my servant is not feeling well, so I better keep an eye on it. I swear that's purely the aspect of what they actually are for. It's sort of, oh, my servant is not doing well, so I better actually make sure it doesn't die on me. Who else is going to change my litter and feed me? Is anyone else actually in here, or am I just talking to myself again? I don't mind talking to myself, it's just a matter of just the same old thing, or so just as long as I don't answer myself would be the scary matter. Oh god damn, of course, you don't have to be that much of a sucker. Okay, time to check them, because they should be on straight now. What I'm waiting for is the puff pastry to go golden brown. God damn it, now I want to watch Macross Plus. Hey, a little bit too hot. See, a couple more minutes and they'll be done. Just need to get them into a little bit more golden colour. And like I said, the first ones are going to look like. I knew they weren't going to turn out that good, purely because I was just manhandling them too much and the puff pastry started to stretch in the shape. But the rest of this is going to be turned into more of them, and then about that much is going to be turned into a meatloaf.
Well, it's almost done, which is good. Then I can go and die in the corner. Actually, I've got to finish off the desserts and the vegan ramen that I'll be doing for tonight. It's why I started midday, because it's so really steady, which gives me 7 hours to just plod through. I really wish my body wasn't so righteous. When you're at the same time, I wouldn't be screaming if I was actually physically fit. I'd be out cooking or still in the Navy. Everyone has their grudges. Everyone has their little the things that they don't like. Such is life. But on the upside, at least I've been able to meet some interesting people while I've been streaming.
So the underside's nicely cooked. Nice golden layer on the top. And the ends are nice and crispy. One sausage roll. You let that sit for a couple of minutes so that you can finish cooking through. And then you serve them up like that. A little bit of tomato sauce if you want, or if you Americans, a little bit of tomato ketchup. And you can put them onto a nice chicken salad or some nice Caesar salad, and that will actually get you a nice meal. But anyway, I'm going to go have a rest, then finish off making the rest of these for tonight, as well as I've still got the rest of the stuff I want to make. I should be streaming later on today, finishing off with some more Terraria. If I see you then, I look forward to it. If not, I wish you the best of luck, and das vidaniyo.